On that, let's welcome Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, who participated in the video conference. Governor Hogan was one of 10 governors there. He's one of 5 Republicans, along with 5 Democrats who were part of this call. And Governor Hogan, it's good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
So what happened on this call yesterday?
Well, it's a very productive meeting. This was the executive committee of the National Governors Association, and I thought it was a productive meeting. It was mostly the president-elect and vice president-elect listening to the governors to get input on what we thought were the urgent priorities. So it was primarily revolving around battling the virus. We talked about the vaccine. I talked about the need to find some kind of bipartisan compromise on getting the next stimulus bill out for our economic recovery. We talked about things like authorizing Title 32 to help pay for the National Guard that we may have to call up to help with vaccine distribution and other really important things as we fight this battle over the virus. But I thought it was a good meeting, and I appreciate the fact that they took the time to talk with the governors.
Governor, you wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post recently where you expressed some frustration at the lack of guidance and the lack of coordination coming from the federal government to this point. What happened? What got you to that point?
Well, early on, that was actually a while ago, that op-ed in the Washington Post talking about that. But in the early part of the crisis, really there was not a great deal of leadership coming from the federal government, and all the states were on their own. I had to go negotiate with another country in South Korea for almost a month to get 500,000 coronavirus tests when there weren't any in America. But they have improved since then. Operation Warp Speed is a tremendous success where we're making incredible progress on vaccines. We've come a long way on therapeutics. We authorized, at the behest of the governors, they authorized the Defense Production Act and ramped up production of things like ventilators and swabs and desperately needed supplies of PPE. And so I think we've made a heck of a lot of progress. We had a terrific meeting this week with Vice President Pence and the Coronavirus Task Force, and followed by the meeting with the incoming administration. And I'm just hopeful that they can work together in this transition, because we've got an economic recovery that's critically important, and we're at kind of the worst part of the health crisis.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page with that, and we'd all like to see that. What is the plan right now, as you understand it, in terms of trying to distribute the vaccines? Because we're looking at Pfizer today going ahead and submitting its emergency use authorization application to the FDA. They say that within days of that happening, within days of it being approved, they can start rolling out the vaccine. Are you ready to start having the vaccine coming in and start distributing it to your citizens?
We're more than ready. We're anxious. We're anxiously awaiting, and it is good news and progress. But 2 weeks ago, all the states had to submit a distribution plan to the CDC and FEMA. And so we're not going to get enough vaccines immediately to cover everybody in the country or in each of our states. So we had to prioritize when we get the first small batches of them, where do they go? And our plan, calls for getting them to the most vulnerable, like our nursing homes, to our frontline healthcare workers and first responders, our EMTs, and the people that are most at risk and that we need to protect. And then we want to work down the list until we really get everybody vaccinated. That is not going to happen in weeks. It's going to be many months. We're hopeful that by spring or summer we'll have more production of vaccines, but it may take until mid to maybe the third quarter of next year before we can get widespread distribution.
Governor, I listened yesterday to the press conferences from both Vice President Pence and also President-elect Biden following calls with governors. What do you think really changes in terms of the handling of the virus the day that President-elect Biden becomes president? Because he said a number of times, I'm not going to shut the country down, I'm going to shut the virus down. One wonders how that's specifically achieved, and whether, if you compare those press conferences, the only real difference was raising the idea of a national mask mandate from President-elect Biden. But perhaps that won't make things change drastically overnight.
Well, it's a good question. The vice president has not said a whole lot about what might change. And in our discussion with him yesterday, he was mostly on a fact-finding mission because the governors have been the ones on the front lines fighting this crisis for 9 months. And he was listening to everything we had to say. He agreed with everything that I said and what other governors said. I think he had a press conference afterwards saying he was going to pursue all of the things that we talked about. But I believe that the Vice President Pence, and the coronavirus task force right now is really, getting things done. They're really on a good path, and I'm hopeful that all of that will continue smoothly, and that we're all in this together at the federal, state, and local level, together with our private sector, and everybody's battling this virus. And I just want to make sure that everybody gets up to speed and no balls are dropped, because right now we actually are. The virus is running out of control, but behind the scenes, really incredible things are happening with therapeutics and vaccines, and all the states are trying to work together with the federal government.
Governor, also wanted to get your thoughts on the decision by the Trump administration and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin yesterday to cut Fed lending power. There's a big debate about whether this is politically motivated, what it could mean for municipal bonds and the ability for the Fed to support cities and other municipalities.
Yeah, well, it's a terrible mistake, in my opinion. I mean, I agree with the Fed. Right now, our economy is extremely fragile. They need to have the flexibility to do that type of lending and investing on an emergency basis. As we're dealing with trying to keep people working and trying to keep businesses open and functioning until we get to the point where we have that vaccine. I don't really understand the motivation behind it. I think it's a mistake. I also think, and we talked about this with Vice President Biden yesterday, we really need Democrats and Republicans in Congress to put aside the politics and reach the compromise solution on the forced stimulus bill, because we're just starting to see our economic crisis is by no means over. This is going to get worse before it gets better, both on the health side and on the economic side.
And Governor, before you go, just speak to the issues of this transition. We were reading a J.P. Morgan note just yesterday. There are people, both in the markets and obviously in the political sphere, who are deeply concerned that this transition may either not turn into a transition or be a deeply challenged and troubled one. When you talk to your peers, especially in the Republican Party, that have not broken, if you will, with the president, what do you tell them?
Well, I've been speaking out as clearly as I possibly can. We need to have the transition begin as soon as possible. These kind of ridiculous challenges that are not based on fact, need to end. We have to move forward with the transition. I mean, like it or not, we cast the votes, we count the votes, and we live with the results. And we've always had a peaceful transition of power. I think the mistake right now of not sharing information with the incoming administration is outrageous. I think it's bad for Donald Trump. It's bad for the Republican Party, bad for the country, and our standing in the world. And it's diminishing the presidency. Everybody I know is giving that same advice and pushing to get this resolved, including, I think, friends of the president's staff, folks on his campaign. I think everybody's giving that advice. It's just a matter of time before he starts listening.
Governor Hogan, I want to thank you. It's good talking to you.